Hey heroes, Cole's here. Today I'm going through the best gear in HVH. I'm going to separate it into 5 different categories here, from all day, every day, down to your giveaways. So I tried to use closed concepts because we're talking about gear. I'm going to go through all 30 pieces of gear, talk a little bit about each one, when it's good, when it's not good, and why I think each piece is where it is. But I'm going to focus mostly on what's good for most everyday players, and that is up to kind of like Ascendant. So there are 3 kind of main gear sets that you should know about. There's the max DPS set, there's your farming set, and then there's like a nightmare mode, the more defensive build set. You wear your max DPS gear for 90% of the game, you wear farming for 9%, and you wear the nightmare mode kind of defensive build for 1%. The main concept with gear, particularly early in the game, is just wear your highest tier. So even if I have something listed better here, if you're early and you have like a rare piece instead of a common piece, equip the rare version and not the common one. And I will pull these up as we go. So it's going to be a little bit random, but let's see what we get. All right, first up is Wizard Gloves. I'm going to put them in luxury wear. So these are really not that helpful early in the game, but they get really strong later in the game. At the Ascended level, they get plus damage to burning and multiple to damage to burning, which is really strong. You're going to end up using that as your fallback when you don't have critical strike enabled in something like Arena or hard mode Arena. So those are really good for their status effect multiples. Those will really amp your damage late game. Early in the game, they just add to area effect and status effect, and that's really of no use to anybody. So unless they're your highest tier gear, you're not going to run these until later, and then they're also situational and later. So I have them for luxury wear. Next up, we got Night Boots. These are special occasion guys, in my opinion. So the best thing about Night Boots is that they add immunity to slow at the Ascended level, and you're going to use those a lot in Nightmare mode. Before that, you can use it in like some flagpole builds for night. So very, very useful in Nightmare mode, not really used at all before that, and no reason to use it otherwise. You're only going to be using this if you need to avoid slows. Next up, we got Rogue Amulet. This thing is all day, every day, baby. The Rogue Amulet is one of the best pieces of gear in the game. You are going to use it beginning of the game, end of the game, all the time in the game. The Rogue set in particular is going to be generally very, very useful because it's generally the max DPS set. Early in the game, it adds critical strike and movement speed, which is always helpful. And then when you get it to epic level, you get the ability to 4 times your multiple to crit. It's your first time getting that status, and it's going to massively amp your damage at the epic level. So this is going to be used super early as part of your max damage build, and then later in the game, it adds more critical strike, which is always helpful. And then its heroic level adds damage to bosses and elites. So a very, very strong piece of gear. All right, Ranger Ring. This guy, you actually don't use all that much, unfortunately. It has instant kill early in the game, which is going to be super helpful. So if you get it early, feel free to equip it. But it adds projectile speed early in the game, and that's of really no use to anybody. The instant kill you'll take if it's like the first one that you level up to the required rarity. But after that, you're not going to use it. And then later in the game, there are just better rings than it across the board for different purposes, and so you never end up using it. So Ranger Ring is in my giveaway pile, and I can donate that one to Goodwill. Ranger Hood. Ranger Hood has a very niche use. I use it for early in Nightmare mode when you're under-geared elsewhere. The nice thing about Ranger Hood is it adds plus movement speed at the epic level, and so you can use it early in Nightmare mode just to outrun the Horde. So that's like basically the only time I've used it in the game was part of my Crazy Taxi build to clear like the first 50 chapters of Nightmare when I was a little bit under-geared relative to the content and was just running away from Horde. Unfortunately, Ranger Hood is never ideal as part of your build except for that one instance in early Nightmare mode. Next up, we got the Noble Chest. What is this guy called? The Noble's Robe. The Noble Robe is excellent. You use it early in the game as part of your farming set, so you're going to have it every time you go farming, throw on your Noble gear for the increased experience and coins generally. And then at the epic level, it gets plus 10% to silver key chance, so get that on as fast as you can. And then ideally, you want to get this thing to Ascended for the 5% increase to gold key chance. 5% gold key chance is the equivalent of a 30% increase to silver key chance. Even in like guild events and in faction wars, I'm going to try and get this piece equipped for that key chance. because over time, those additional runs will net you some extra keys and they help a lot. Anytime you can afford to put on the Noble Robe, you should put on the Noble Robe for that massive increase to key chance. All right, next up is Ranger Gloves. I'll put these here. They're a little bit of a misfit set, unfortunately. And so you can use it if you level it up early, but that's about the only time you're going to. So this does have projectile speed, cooldown, critical strike, and damage to slow at heroic, but there are just better gloves at every level, unfortunately. And so you'll use it if you level it up first, but besides that, you're not really going to equip it all that much. So the Ranger set, I think, is probably generally like the weakest set in the game, and one that you don't really use all of that often, unfortunately. Next up, Wizard Ring. Okay, so Wizard Ring is a fun one. I'm going to put it here for now. So this ring is the best late game ring there is. It has a 1.25 multiple to damage against frozen enemies at Ascended, and then a 1.3 damage to frozen enemies at Heroic. And so that's massively important for events like Boss Brawl, where you're trying to max damage against the boss during its frozen period, or you just run it generally in Nightmare mode for the status effect duration. Now, unfortunately, before those endgame pieces of content, it's not the strongest ring. It doesn't have any instant kill, and instant kill is super valuable in early game content like normal mode. So I'm not going to give it all day, every day quite, because you don't play it until you're in like the 1% of people that are doing the end of endgame content. Next up, Knight Chest. Unfortunately, this is not very good. So this used to be pretty good. This used to be core to Nightmare mode because it would give you a shield and make you invulnerable, but they've basically disabled that in all modes. It's essentially worthless at Ascended. That bonus gives you nothing, and that really hurts it. Early in the game, you're going to use it as part of like a flagpole build with the Knight, but even then, you generally are going to be wanting to run more offensive items, and it's one of the weaker pieces in the Knight set, so you never really equip it elsewhere. So this is one of my giveaways. You don't really need a Knight Chest. Rogue Ring. Okay, this is one of the weaker pieces in the Rogue set, but something that you'll use early game. The plus to instant kill is great, the critical strike is great, and the increased spawn for power-ups is fine, but not something that's like game-changing. The most important thing here is instant kill, which will help you in all the early game modes. So this is core to your early game DPS build, and then once you get to later in the game, you switch out the Wizard Ring instead of using the Rogue Ring. Noble Helm. Noble Helm is a beast. Love this thing. So I'm really partial to farm gear. You do a lot of farming in this game. So while I was saying that for like 90% of content you're wearing the DPS gear, you're wearing your farm gear all of the other time, and you're probably wearing it more often than not late game because you're just doing so much farming. And the Noble Helm is fantastic for farming. It offers +1 starting upgrades early, which is really helpful in Arena and helps you clear that content out early. And then it has plus to hero orbs later, which is fantastic. So anything to plus hero orbs, you'll take all the time. So you're going to be wearing this all game as often as you can whenever you're farming. And in any run where you can get away with it, you want to try to equip this along with the Noble Chest. So I'm putting it up in all day, every day, because you use it for farming all the time. Noble Boots. Noble Boots are like their big brothers up here. They give you hero orbs early, and then dust, and then gold key chance. That gold key chance is 5%, so again, it's like another equivalent of like 30% silver key chance. Awesome. So whenever you're farming, you want these equipped, because you can't say that about all the Noble gear. For example, Noble Gloves. Noble Gloves. So Noble Gloves aren't like the rest of the Noble set, and there are instances where I don't equip Noble Gloves when I'm farming. Because these gloves only add coins and XP, they're basically purely for farming coins early in the game. But if you can get to one chapter higher that offers better resources, you can get rid of them in favor of Rogue Gloves for more damage, if it lets you AFK or auto farm. At Heroic, they add more guild points, which is nice for your guild, but doesn't make a huge impact on gameplay, so not the best Heroic there. Next up is Wizard Amulet. Put this actually down in luxury wear. So this Wizard set is if you're fancy. Its early game bonuses are basically worthless, and you can't really use them. However, when you get to Ascended, you get 2 starting upgrades, making it fantastic for Arena and for hard mode Arena. So actually a really good fit in luxury wear, because you're not going to want to run this until you're at least at Ascended and probably more like Mythic most of the time. Next up is Knight Amulet, and this is down here. Yeah, it's not that bad. I guess Knight Amulet can go somewhere like here for now. Knight Amulet you use basically in Nightmare mode. The plus 10% scaling to health is super helpful, when you're trying to complete early parts of Nightmare mode and you need the extra health. You can also use this for Leprechaun sometimes if you want to like have him survive on like, I use it for like 390 hard mode. If I want him to like have a little extra tankiness during the beginning so I can make sure that he survives and can farm coins and additional resources. Rogue Helm. All right, this guy's up here. This is the best helm in the game, damage-wise, basically all game. Even at the end of the game in heroic mode, it adds 2 times damage to all statuses, which is like mind-bogglingly huge. So this becomes just an absolute beast at heroic, and you use it for your max DPS set the rest of the game. It's like the best helm for damage no matter what else you're running. Wizard Robe. Wizard Robe is a special occasion where you're going to love the starting upgrade at the rare tier. That is super helpful in Arena for cheesing it early in the game. You need those starting upgrades, and so that's what you're using it for, is for Arena. After that, anytime you want like additional starting upgrades, you might use it, but even then there are still better options than it. And so it's not something that you're going to want to be equipping most of the time. So it's like really just for Arena. It's got that one special use case. Ranger Boots. Ranger Boots are your max DPS boots. You're going to be using these in all of your max DPS builds. They add plus cooldown, they add plus projectiles. They are fantastic, fantastic boots. And the ones that give you the most damage amp if you can get away with equipping them. Sometimes you won't be able to because certain game modes, right, are going to require you to have like slow immunity, or you're going to need wizard boots to get XP or something. But as often as you can, you're going to want to be equipping your ranger boots if you need a damage boost, because they do the most damage by far of any boots in the game. But then you have rogue boots, and these are the worst boots in the game. Way down here. This is the single worst item in the game. I have never equipped rogue boots. I can't think of a reason you'd want to. There is one instance where I thought maybe if I had them at Mythic or Heroic before I had any other pieces of equipment, you could use them at the end of Nightmare mode to beat hard Nightmare mode chapters like 202. It gives a ton of evasion, which is just not very useful, unfortunately, in Heroes vs. Hordes. So with that stat being like its whole identity, you don't really ever use it. All right, Noble Necklace. This is here with the Noble Gloves. You wear them to farm as often as you can, but they add plus to scrolls from their ascended level, and before that is just coins and experience, and scrolls are like the least valuable resource to farm. And so again, like the gloves, if you're trying to clear harder content with your farming gear, I substitute out the Rogue Necklace for this Noble Amulet. With that in mind, you don't use it all the time, but you still use it a lot. So this is going to be your farming necklace, 95% of the time, unless you're trying to get to that next stage of resources, like for more hero orbs and for more dust. Next up is Wizard Boots. These have a special occasion use too. They are used primarily when you need to extract experience or resources from a stage that you can't run and collect. So if you have enough cooldown and you don't need Ranger Boots anymore, then you can consider using them in Boss Brawl to collect all of the experience. You don't have to run around and collect it. Or you can use it in Nightmare mode for the set bonus. So if you don't need the slow immunity from Night Boots, you can equip these. They'll attract all of the experience in Nightmare mode, helping you level up during waves, making the content a little bit easier. So they have those two niche uses, which is like Boss Brawl, maybe in Arena, and then again in Nightmare mode. So very, very particular use here. Otherwise, the statuses that they add are not all that valuable. Wizard Hat. This is somewhere here between niche and luxury. The big thing here that it adds is status effect duration. That's fantastic. Later in the game, when you need to freeze things for longer. But that's really only it, because it doesn't have like any impact to damage. And so it'll help you survive in certain situations, or help you get a set bonus for the wizard if you need it, but you're not going to be using it otherwise. And so only for special, it's somewhere between special occasions and luxury wear, like most of the wizard gear. Rogue Gloves. Rogue Gloves are great. They are core to your max TPS build the entire game, and they're great from the start until the end. They have critical strike chance, evasion, more critical strike, and then the chance to get 4 times critical strike at Ascended. And so these are, again, the ones that I'll substitute out even into my farming runs when I need to do additional damage for that 4 times chance to crit and all the critical strike before that. So I use them when I'm farming, and I use them for my max TPS. I use them all the time. These columns look all nice and pretty, but I think I'm going to have to add a couple of columns here. All right, and I'm back for making them all prettier, and I just added the noble ring right here. So the noble ring is core to your farm build and has silver key chance at ascended, which is fantastic, with plus scrolls and plus coins, kind of like everywhere else. Its plus chance that that chest is just essentially more coins, but like a slightly weaker, more variant version of it. Let's actually put it here. All right, night gloves. Night gloves I like a lot. The nice thing about night gloves is that they add plus 5% to HP, which is really helpful later in the game. Plus they add damage and some armor and healing. So they have everything that you want kind of later in the game. And so they can be really helpful in nightmare mode for getting you some extra damage and some defensive items, plus the additional health. Rogue chest. Rogue chest you use all of the time for your damage. This is the max damage chest, and you use it 90% of the game. The only time you're not really using it is in certain parts of Arena when you need to cheese for the extra starting upgrade, or in Nightmare mode where you're going more defensive, or in Hero Clash where you need the additional spins. Whenever you need additional spins, you substitute out this for the next piece of gear, the Ranger chest. The Ranger chest is great because it adds +1 to projectiles, physical projectiles, and it adds additional shuffles. So any mode where you need those additional shuffles in order to hit the weapons that you need, you run it. And so it becomes super helpful in Hero Clash, and it becomes super helpful in like hard mode Arena and in certain stages of Nightmare mode. So Ranger chest is a great piece of equipment. It's somewhere between Special Occasion and War Pants, but it's probably, that's why I have it down here at the end. But it replaces the Rogue chest in certain situations. The Rogue chest is going to be your max damage chest 90% of the time. So they're all day, every day. All right, we got Night Helm. Night Helm is a special occasion guy that you're going to be wearing whenever you take your heroes to Nightmare mode and get it into your build. It has a lot of armor and health regeneration early, all the way up to Ascended, and that's super helpful to the 60% armor in the stat screen that you want when you're running Nightmare mode. So great for Nightmare mode because it has armor and it has health regen. But unless you're doing those two types of content, you don't really run it otherwise. So it has a very particular niche use. Night Ring, unfortunately, is not one that you use anymore. This, again, used to pair really well with the Night Chest in order to clear Nightmare mode. Because the Night Chest gave you a shield, you could then let it explode with the Night Ring, and the combination would take out Horde. In Nightmare mode, it was like only way you could actually like clear Horde back in the day. Now, that doesn't do anything anymore, so not really needed. Last up is the Ranger necklace, and we'll put this down here in giveaways too. So there has not been a situation yet where I want to run the Ranger necklace over anything else. That being said, it does have instant kill, and so you can use it as part of the Pirate Queen build. So maybe it's not in giveaways. Let's like put it like right here on like the very tail end of special occasions, where it's going to be part of your Pirate Queen cheese for Arena, and then like you're going to use it early in the game to replace your Rogue Amulet if Critical Strike is disabled. So there's those two instances, I guess, where you will use it. All right, so let's take a look at the overall rankings here to make sure that I have them generally correct. All day, every day. So like these are like slightly, you know, like ones on the right are slightly worse than the ones on the left here, but like if they're in the tier, they're all basically the same. So don't sweat it too much, like the positioning. Right, like for example, I think the Noble Chest is one of the best pieces in the game for all that key chance. You're going to use that up until you hit Heroic. So like for 99.9% of the game, you're going to want to equip the Noble Chest as often as you possibly can. And then the same thing goes for the Noble Boots as soon as they have gold key chance. So like I use those a ton. The Rogue Helm is the max damage helm later in the game, and so it's also the max damage helm early in the game. So you're just wearing that the whole time. Same thing with the Rogue Amulet. And the Ranger boots. So I'm pretty happy with this. So you can make an argument that this Wizard Ring should be higher. You use the Wizard Ring a lot as soon as you get it to Ascended. Not that many people have Ascended gear. So like that's the balancing act here. Is once you hit it Ascended, it replaces the Rogue Ring and you use it all the time. Before Ascended, you don't use it at all. Most players are not going to need to use this. So keep that in mind. If you have it Ascended, go for it. If you have it early in the game, keep your instant kill chance from Rogue or Ranger rings. All right, and I'm trying to make a trade-off here between late game players and early game players when the majority of people are in the early game. All right, I'm Coles. I'm a high-level HVH player and part of a top 10 guild. You can ask questions here on Discord or on my website, hvhlounge.com, or you can sign up for my Patreon for priority answers to your questions. You can also become an executive producer, like Cake Invictus and Riverwind, who are the executive producers of this video. And remember, always do your adventures!